Hi and welcome to ReaperTV. Today we're looking at the all-new Mercuriall Spark plugin. Now Spark is Mercuriall's latest flagship powerhouse, featuring 4 Marshall modelled amps, a powerful stereo impulse response cabinet with a range of 8 different cab models and a choice of 1 or 2 mics that are fully configurable to help you get the best sound possible. On top of this already impressive feature set, we also have a built-in noise gate, an all-new effects section that gives us a range of overdrive style stomp boxes, a chorus, reverb and finally a digital delay with tempo and syncing options. Going back to the amp section, we can also pick from either EL34 tubes or 6L6 GC tubes to allow for even more subtle tweaking of the amp section to ensure that we have an extensive range of tonal options available to us. Now, if you've ever watched any of our other guitar-based videos, you'll already know that I love the Mercuriall software, and my de facto go-to cab emulator is the Mercuriall Cab 3, which incidentally is completely free and highly recommended. We also gave a glowing review to the previous releases of the free Tube Screamer and the commercial U530 virtual amp, so you can imagine how excited we got around ReaperTV offices when we first heard about the new Spark plugin. Did it live up to the anticipation? Well, stick around and see for yourselves. So let's kick this demo and review off with a quick tour of the interface. So as you can see, it follows closely with the Marshall styling, which sits nicely alongside the full control options added by Mercuriall. So what we have is 4 Marshall amps on offer. The first is based on the Marshall AFD. We also have the JCM 800, the JMP Super Lead with the Master Mod, and the Marshall JMP Super Bass also with the Master Mod. Now each of these amps has switchable power and tube sections for more sound choices. Moving on to the cab section, we have a mix of Bogner Uber cabs and Marshall 1960s, mic'd up with either an SM57, a Sennheiser MD441 or the Royer R121. Now we're not limited to just one of those mics, we can now use a pair of mics and we can mix between any of those 3 options, even including the mic positions to ensure that we get a massive array of different audio options. And finally we have a range of oversampling options and the ability to switch between mono and stereo. So before we move on to the effects section, let's have a listen to what these amps sound like and some of the controls and options we have available to us, both on their own and inside a mix, to see how they stack up and how they work when you're recording using the Mercuriall Spark. So now that we've gone through and actually taken a look at the interface of Mercuriall Spark, let's have a listen to what it sounds like. We're going to dial a couple of tones in. We're going to start off with a straightforward DI of a couple of guitars, and then we'll take a look at what it sounds like in a mix itself. And it's a basic mix, but it'll give you an idea of how it sits together with multiple guitars, drums and bass. So I've gone ahead and loaded an instance of Mercuriall Spark onto my first guitar track, and what I'm going to do is dial that tone in from the basics. So I'm going to mute the microphone and I'm going to go through and dial it in to get a kind of rough ballpark where I want it to be. So let's do that right now. So to go ahead now and do exactly the same thing on the second guitar part. So I'm going to close this instance down and open up my second instance. And for this example, I'm going to use the AFD just to give us a different tone so we have a flavour in the 2 guitar parts that are being played. So now that we have those two guitar tones dialed in, let's have a listen to what it sits like in the mix, just to see how Mercuriall Spark actually sounds like when it's not just a standalone amplifier simulator with all the different options, but how it sits together in a whole mix kind of thing, where we have the bass and the drums sitting together. So let's just close this down, and I'm just going to unsolo the guitar parts, making sure that everything is in place. Okay, so let's just have a listen to what this sounds like now, where we've got everything together. Now this is unmixed, there's no EQs or anything on any of the guitar parts, this is just Mercuriall. So let's have a listen. So as a starting point, I think that sounds pretty good. We've got two distinct guitar tones using two completely different Marshall amplifiers. So we've got that difference between the two, and each one has their own characteristics. Now there's one of the things that I really do like about the way that the Mercuriall Spark operates, and that is if I just open this interface back up, where we've got the master volume. If you ever use a tube amplifier, you'll know the harder you push that power section, the more the tubes heat up and the more you start to get breakup in the overall sound. So the sound changes based upon how hard you're driving that amplifier. And this works in exactly the same way. If we start to boost the master volume, we'll find we'll get slightly more gain, more drive out of it, and we'll start to get a dirtier signal. So if I just solo this track out, and I'm going to do exactly that, we'll listen to it with just the way it is at the moment, where the master is down quite low. And then we'll pump the master up and we'll have a listen to the difference it makes to the actual tone of the guitar. Now you will notice a level increase because we're pushing the master volume, and what I'm going to do for this example is I'm going to turn the stomp box off so we can listen to it with just the amplifier's power section with the natural drive and gain that you're going to get from it. So this is the sound before we actually make any alteration to the master volume. And now I'm going to take the master volume and I'm going to start pushing that up. Like I say, it is going to get slightly louder, but you're going to find the tonal characteristics of the amplifier's power section changes. Listen to what some of the overdrive kind of tones give us in Mercuriall Spark. How about we take a look at what some of the cleaner tones and how we can invoke some of the effects section to give us a nice overall sort of semi-acoustic clean kind of guitar tone. So I've got a different track in front of me now, and this is just a couple of clean guitars, DI as per usual, and we've got some solo bits and pieces on there, and I'll put the whole track on later. I want to concentrate on the rhythm section so we can listen to what the guitars sound like using in the clean channels. So let's load that up. And as I said at the beginning when we took a look at the interface, we've got a couple of channel options available. So I'm going to use the JCM 800 for this example, and I'm going to switch over to channel 2, which is going to be the cleaner of the two channels. So I'm going to pull the gain back slightly on there, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the impulse response section to shape the sound over the EQ section. So as I did with the first part of this, I'm going to dial the tone in, go through, try some different options on this so you can see exactly what I'm doing and how that changes the sound. And you're going to find it's a little more subtle because we're not pushing the tube section quite as hard as we did with the first demo. But let's have a listen to what it sounds like where you can listen to me making those changes. Okay, we've got some basic tones in there now. As you can see, as we go over to the edge of the cab, we start to warm things up, which is what I was looking for. And then I can kind of offset that by adding a little extra clarity by putting over on the second microphone position to get that closer to the cone and a little further away so it brightens things up. But now we've done that, got a dialed in basic tone. Let's switch over to the effects section and let's start using the chorus and the reverb just to add a little bit more depth to the overall sound. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just mute the microphone and make those changes and dial that tone in. And there we go, that's the chorus and the reverb added in there to give it an extra dimension. Now the chorus effect on the U530 plugin was absolutely fantastic, a really high quality chorus effect, and I've got to say that on the Spark, it's exactly the same. It's a great quality chorus, and adding the fact you've got a reverb and some of the other sections in there now to give you even more options opens up a whole soundscape to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this exact same effect onto my second track, make some slight alterations to the sound on there. I'm going to leave the chorus and the reverb so they're the same, and then we're going to have a listen to what it sounds like in the mix with both guitars being used at the same time using just Mercuriall Spark. So I've dialed the tone in for both of those clean guitars, and what I'm going to do to start off with is just play those back on their own, and then I'll put in the bass and the drums and the other guitar parts so you can listen to what it sits like as a mix. So this is just the two guitars using Mercuriall Spark. So hopefully what you can hear there is a nice, spacious, really good quality guitar tone with some really nice quality effects. So let's have a listen now where we've got all of the guitar parts in there, the lead parts, the drums and the bass. And again, this isn't mixed, this is just a rough basic put together so you can listen to see what Spark sounds like as part of an overall ensemble thing. So there we go, that wraps up the demo of Mercuriall Spark. Now I've had the opportunity to work with this piece of software, testing it out for the last couple of weeks, and the more I use it, the more I get to fall in love with the overall tone and the functionality that's available. If you're the kind of person that you're looking to emulate those traditional Marshall tones, this is going to get you there very quickly and very easily, especially if you're the kind of person that likes the amplifiers that these are modeled on, the typical JCM 800 and so on. It's a great emulation. The effects section, great quality effects. I love the chorus, the delay is great, the reverb is great, the noise gate and the stomp, the fact we've got a couple of stomp options available to us is fantastic. So all that's left to say is, would I spend my money on Mercuriall Spark? If I was after Marshall tones, yes. If I wanted great sounding effects, yes. And if I wanted a great section where I can deal with the impulse responses and I have a lot of mic options available, then yes. The fact it's not crazy money to purchase is a big added bonus. So I would say download the demo, test it out for yourself, and if you were after those great iconic Marshall tones with a whole range of great effects, this may well answer that in spades. Well, if you enjoyed this video on Mercuriall Spark, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any comments, questions or feedback, please pop those in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of the new content we add every single week. And until next time, happy mixing.